Good afternoon, and welcome to our training session this afternoon, where we are meeting with higher ed instructors to go over the LabSim class setup. Appreciate you being here. First off, want to make sure that everybody knows you can ask questions anytime during this session. So please look for the questions area in your GoToWebinar panel. Should see a red box with a white arrow. The arrow should be pointing to the right. And if you could find that area, and please type in a yes so that I know that everybody is on board today. All right. Looks like I have most results back. Thank you so much for commenting on that. And feel free again to type in questions anytime. First off, the one thing that I want to make sure that everybody knows is that if you are using LabSim through your LMS integration, which could be any of these listed here, or maybe some other proprietary ones, but classes are often set up automatically through your LMS system. So what I want to cover today are specifically for those instructors that are using our interface, the LabSim interface, for their students, so that you know how the setup works. Also, if there's anybody on board that is interested in learning more about getting set up through your LMS system, please contact your test out representative for further detail on that specifically. So here is our agenda today, and we should have plenty of time to cover all of this and time for questions as well. So we're going to go over first the class creation, because that's the one thing that, again, if you're using our system, you would need to set up in order for students to enroll in the class. Then we will look at the student enrollment side of things. What does the student do on their end? And then what can the instructor do? As far as what can you see as far as student enrollment, as well as we will have a roster verification and, of course, a question and answer at the end. But again, feel free to ask questions anytime during this session. So let's talk first about the class setup. Now, I've already logged into my account. Let me pull that up on the screen here. And the one thing that you need to do, again, if you're using our interface, is you will need to make sure there's a class set up. There are a few instances where maybe an administrator is taking care of that, but generally speaking, on a college level, university, that the instructors do that individually. So on your main page, underneath classes, you would click the word add, and I recommend put in your course number as part of the class name. So I'm going to call this CIS 234, and this is for fall of 2020. Pick your start date that the class is beginning, and then, of course, select the end date, the last day your class is scheduled to meet, or when the semester is over. Instructors, your name will automatically default here, but you can add in another instructor if somebody is helping out with the class. That's, of course, optional. But the last field that needs to be completed is the associated LabSim products. I'm going to say this class where you're teaching PC Pro is my example, so I'm going to select that particular course. That's all I need to do to fill in, and now I will click Create, and my class is now listed right here that I just set that up. So that's the only thing instructors need to do to get things basically set up for their students. Now, what do the students need to do? Let's go back and look first at, well, what happens? How does the student even get access to the material? So let's talk about that. Student activation can be multiple ways. Students can purchase from the college bookstore. They can purchase from Test Out Direct. They may receive a code from their instructor. Or, of course, those that are using LMS, they can be automatically activated upon login to their accounts. So if you happen to be unsure of how this is going to work in your facility, feel free to contact your test out representative to find out how they have it set up. Today, what I'm going to do is to proceed as if I'm a student. So I'm going to say that I've already purchased the product and now I need to set up my account. So I'm going to go out to testout.com and I'm going to click sign up. And sorry, I'm logged in here, so this won't work right now. Let me log out of my account first. And this is what the student would see. They need to create an account. And I can go ahead and type in a password. My first name, my email address, I can certainly type in as well. And my activation code. Now this code, again, would be what is the students receive. Generally speaking, it's just the very general. If you're using, again, our interface, typically the students buy from the bookstore or from TestOut directly. But again, there are instances where the codes are provided to the instructors to hand out to students. But nonetheless, the student needs this code in order to create their account. Now, when I click Create Account, I can enter a mobile number if I want, which is only used for password recovery, or of course the student can say no thanks. They're not interested in that right now. Now it says link your account with your campus, and it says that my code is already associated with this specific campus. Is this a school that you are part of? The student would say yes, of course, if they are, and obviously no if they aren't. In this case, I'm going to say yes. And now you notice the next step. It says if you're already know that the class that you need to enroll in, please enroll now. This is why it's important to have the class set up. Usually I recommend about a week or two before class begins, but you can do it anytime, of course, before your start. Now I can look for my class. It's going to ask me who teaches the class. Since this is a class that I created, I'm going to type in my last name. And here I'm going to select the teacher, and I can say, oh yeah, here is the class that I'm supposed to be enrolled in, this Biz 110 class, for instance. So when I click enroll, it'll verify, are you sure you want to enroll in this class? It tells me who the instructor is and what product is required. And I can say, yes, that's the class that I'm supposed to be in. And now I can finish. And I'm automatically have my account set up. And you can see that from here, it gives me the ability to see my class, which is now starting in 5 days, the product that I'm using for my class. And this is exactly how the students get enrolled in their class. Now, if the student didn't know, of course, at the junction when I said, yes, I know who is already teaching my class and what class I need to be enrolled in, but it's possible the students wouldn't have known that information at that point. If that's the case, of course, they could have said no and still logged into their account. And then when they would click on their product, to launch the product, it would then ask them who they're supposed to, whose class they're supposed to be in. So it will give them prompts along the way so that they can get enrolled in your class. Now, even with all the prompts, what happens if that still fails? Well, let's look at the instructor side of things here. Let me log out of this account and log back into my instructor account. And here, by the way, is the class that the student just joined. this class that I already had set up previously, which is teaching, in this case, Office. So I can look at my roster by clicking on my class name. So here is the student that just set up her account. You can see that she's logged in, and in this column it says required products are activated. There is a yes by the student's name. There's also a yes here by Jane, but you can see under Jacob's name there is a no. Now, this is important because if you want to be able to see progress for students, then we need to be able to see how things, that you need to make sure the students are ready to go. The yes is indicating that they're ready. So what do we do if we have a student that has a no by their name? Well, let's look at that information here. If the purchase was required by the student, obviously, and it's not being handed out by the instructor, and they're not activated, the student, maybe the student hasn't purchased their code from the bookstore or from Test Out. So make sure, of course, the student has the purchasing detail. The next one, and I'll get to your question here in just a moment. Thank you for that, by the way. The student has purchased the code but not activated it yet. We'll make sure that the student has the info on setting up their account. Now that actually comes with the code itself. So there really shouldn't be anything at that point that you would need to hand out. But there are times where a student may purchase the code and they don't activate it until after they get to class or find out what they're supposed to do with it. So it's possible the student has the code, but they haven't activated it for their class. And then the student has purchased the wrong product for the class. That's another reason there could be a no in that field. So inform the student to contact the seller directly, whether that's Test Out or the bookstore. They can take it back to where they purchased and make sure that they get the correct code. Okay, the question is, what if the student enrolls in the wrong class? Well, great question, and let's look at that. Let me exit here, and let's say the reason maybe Jacob has a no by his name is he is actually enrolled in the wrong class. He's not supposed to be in this particular class. Okay, now there's two ways this could be fixed. The student can unenroll him or herself from the class, or also the teachers and instructors can do that as well. So if I know he's not supposed to be in my class, I can go ahead and click the box next to his name and simply click unenroll, and it will ask me, do I want to unenroll this student? Of course, I can click yes to verify, and now the student is taken out of my class. Now, let's just also take this one step further. Andrea, and thank you for that question, by the way, but let's take this one step further. Let's say the student did have a yes by their name, because they're using the same product, but maybe they just enrolled in the wrong class. So what if I take them out of my class? What does that do to the student? Well, that's literally all it does to the student, is simply takes them out of your class. Their work, any progress that they've done, always follows the student. So if this example, for instance, with Jacob, let's just say he had a yes by his name, and I took him out of my class, and now he needs to enroll, let's just say, in Bob's class. Well, he can be enrolled in Bob's class, and whatever work he's already done will be indicated in the reports that Bob will see for the students. So there's nothing being lost by moving them out of your class or somebody moving them into your class. Okay. Also, we have with our new interface, many of you may have noticed when you logged in after summer break that you see that there's a new interface. We have a new interface that we've been rolling out throughout the summer, and I believe 90+% of our customers are currently using this new interface. So there's a new feature that we have here. Let's say that I look at my class roster. I'm going to look at this class. It has 7 students, for instance. And let's say I am missing somebody. I'm supposed to have 8 students, and I can see that I'm missing someone. Well, I know who that is, obviously, because I compare this list with my roster from the school. So I can go over to the More button, which is the 3 dots on the far right. And this will give me the ability to be able to now invite users to my class. I can type in their email address. If I have more than one, I can type multiple emails as long as they're on separate lines. And then when I click next, it will provide me with the ability to basically send an email to those individual students that will invite them to join my class. That way they have another prompt if need be. So there are really multiple prompts that the student's going to get themselves by simply signing up, but then there's also multiple prompts that the instructor can do. This being one of those, inviting the student, or you also have the ability to go out to your class and to enroll a student. If you happen to know the student says, yeah, I already have an account set up, I'm not sure why you're not seeing my work. Well, the reason you wouldn't be seeing their work is because they're not enrolled in the class. That's the bottom line here. So if I click enroll, I can type in a student's name, and then I can look at the students here, say, oh, this is the student that I need. I've just added that student now to my class. And when I click done, I can see the student is listed here. But again, the student in this case has a no by his name. So again, would go back to one of those options that I just had up on the screen. And let me pull that back up. So again, there are various reasons why there could be a no. These are the 3 main reasons why. I think these actually are the only reasons why the student would have a no. They either haven't purchased, they haven't activated, or they purchased the wrong code. In all 3 cases, those can be resolved so that it makes it simple for both the instructor and the student. But again, unless you're looking at this area, you would not know if the student is set to go. I highly recommend instructors look at this section here within the first week or 2 of class, if not even with just in the first couple days. Make sure all your students have a yes and that you do have all your students enrolled. That part is going to be critical for looking at report data, which again you would access through the More button here, viewing class reports. And that's of course not what we're meeting on today, but I simply wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of how to set up the class, to look over your roster, how the student sets up their own account, and to see the prompts that the student receives along the way. So there's a variety of different options there. If you do have questions on anything, maybe some of you have already discovered that we have a new feature here. The little question mark provides you with some tutorials right inside LabSim directly, where you can view a class report. It shows, look, here's how to invite a student to a class. So if I were interested in more detail on that, when I click on that, it will provide me with the ability to be able to watch a video on that, see the individual steps that need to be taken, or even chat with someone in our support department. Our support is available Monday through Friday from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Also, I can use this pop-out if I want this in a larger view. I can use that pop-out. And I can, of course, close this down at any time as well. So we have a variety of resources here to help you out. Now, it looks like we have another question. How does the student unenroll? That's a great question. Let's look at that option here. This leads me into showing one of the other great features that we have in our new interface. If I'm interested in looking at things how the student sees them, I can click on, again, the More button on the far right and select to see a student view. Now, this will provide me with the ability to see things exactly like the student does. And let's say this isn't the class I'm supposed to be in with this instructor. Well, then, of course, I would go ahead and click this class and I can unenroll from that class. So hopefully that answered your question. It's very simple for students to unenroll from a class if they realize they've made a mistake. And it's, again, just as simple for instructors to unenroll a student. I'm going to go ahead and not unenroll it right now, but I simply wanted to show you that we have that student view. At the top, you'll notice there is a blue bar that indicates you're looking at a student view. And to exit that, simply click the X in the upper right. And that will then provide you with the ability to go back to your instructor view. Again, by clicking on the class name, you see your roster. You see if the students are activated. You can enroll or unenroll students. So if somebody happens to drop from your class and they, in essence, forget to take themselves out, then you have that ability, of course, to unenroll them from your class. Looks like there's another question we have posted this about the student view, general for all students, or can you see what the particular student sees? Basically, it's a general, I guess you could say, overview, but because it is associated with the class itself, like if I click, this is my office class, so if I go into the student view here, for instance, this is only showing me the Office product. Now, if I were a student, maybe I've already taken Office, and now maybe I am taking an IT Fundamentals course. As you notice, I'm not seeing any course except the one that is associated with that specific class. But this is simply the layout that the student would see. So you can see at the top, they have some tutorials. They can exit out of those tutorials if they aren't interested in reviewing that. They see their classes here at the top of the page and a product. So this is the same layout, the same view that the students have, but again, this wouldn't necessarily be indicative of a specific student. And the students report, it looks like I have another question on that. As far as the reports go, obviously the student can see report data just like the instructor can. And there are reports here across from the actual product itself. You can see there's reports, as well as there's reports here that they can view exam reports. And these would be, the reports here would be associated with the class reports. So their score sheet is typically what I recommend looking at. And there are corresponding reports, of course, for instructors as well. And we will be having another session talking about specifically just everything reporting. I'm not, again, going to get into that in any more detail today, since this session was designed to just simply cover how to get things set up. So instructors would be setting up a class for the students, and then accordingly the students will be enrolling in that respective class. All right, we have a few minutes left, so I do want to open it up to see if we have any additional questions. And thank you guys so much for asking questions during this session. Really appreciate that. Hopefully this was helpful, but I just want to see again if there's any additional questions that anybody has before we conclude this session today. I'm not seeing anything posted. Of course, you are welcome to contact me. You're welcome for the help. Thank you so much. And like I said, I hope this was helpful for you to answer just basic questions on getting your class underway and how to make sure your students are ready to go. If you do have other questions after we conclude here today, feel free to drop me an email. I'm happy to answer those questions. And again, if you're interested in some further information as far as reports or how to use custom exams or the Test Out Pro exams, we do have those sessions coming up next month. So feel free to register for those. The report session, I believe, is the next one on the list. And it should, you're asking me a question here, I'm not sure. Let's go look, actually. Let me go to my website. Oops, and I think I lost that here. Let's go pull up test out. If I mouse over support, I can go to the educator resources and scroll down to the complimentary instructor training. Excuse me. And now the LabSim class setup, of course, is the one that you are attending right now. And the report data, oh, actually, that's coming up next week. So I do have another one this month. So we have the report data coming up next week, followed by custom exams right after the holiday. And then our pro certification exams are coming up towards the end of September. All right, and you're welcome to attend all of these if you like, or whatever ones make the most sense for you. But again, we just concentrate on those specific topics so you get hopefully a good amount of information in one small setting. All right, well, thank you guys so much for attending the session today, and have a rest of a great day. Bye-bye, everybody.